Thank you, John, for your kind invitation. I'm delighted to be here, after all, and to be with such a distinguished audience. And I must also add my voice in expressing our gratitude and thanks to His Majesty the King, to the Kingdom of Bahrain, to the government of Bahrain for their gracious hospitality and welcome and the excellent arrangements for this conference. Perhaps I would like to cast a somewhat positive aspect to the debate in my remarks. And I'm reminded to cite, as most of you probably know, that the fact that a large part of the history of this region, indeed of the Gulf, is the history of our trade and cultural exchange around the Indian Ocean. Omanis in particular have always looked east and engaged with neighbors far and near in Asia. And in the last few decades, we have been actively participating in the economic dynamism of a region that is shaped by rapid growth and diversification in numerous Asian countries and economies. What we are witnessing today brings that to perhaps a new level. And I want to reflect briefly on the scale and global historical significance of the economic infrastructure development that is currently underway. About 150 years ago, Oman started to integrate its own economic activity with the global flows of goods and money and capital, accompanied the massive expansion of European political and economic power, and technologies such as the steam-powered shipping and the telegraph helped European governments and commercial interests build a powerful infrastructure of logistics and communications linking Europe and Asia. And like many of our neighbors in the Middle East, we participated in this process, but only perhaps in a somewhat modest way. The main purpose of this infrastructure was to establish the long-distance connections, such as between Britain and India. Places like Oman functioned as links in this chain, but we were not too actively involved. This time, the process is very different. This time, the initiative comes from within Asia, from within this region. This time, Oman, like many of our neighbors, is a much more active participant, contributing to the process of shaping this new infrastructure for the 21st century. From an Omani perspective, this represents a revival of our historical focus on the Indian Ocean region, but it does so on a scale that would have been unimaginable even to the empire builders of the 19th century. Headline investments such as all the transport, energy, and industry projects associated, for example, with the China-Pakistan economic corridor are examples of this development. But there is an intensification of related activity that is contributing to this reshaping of the regional environment. Oman is a founding member in partnership with Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and recently joined by Qatar for the development of a freight and transit corridor and associated economic activities on the terms of the Ashgabat Agreement. It is significant that India has also chosen to accede to this agreement, strengthening the connectivity and economic potential. Now, from an Omani perspective again, one of the most important areas is port development. We are very excited about the potential of developments such as Jawadar, which looks likely to make contribution to the reduction of transit times and costs, as well as to the massive overall increase in the volume of trade. And at the same time, we welcome the development of Chabahar, which is crucial to the ambitions of the Ashgabat Agreement. But the success of Jawadar does not mean that Chabahar will suffer. Indeed, we all stand to benefit, all the region stands to benefit from the success of both and from the success of all ports in this region. Something very similar might be said of Oman's own contribution. Our developments at Duqm and also Mina's ports like Salalah and Soha. Here we are working on a whole suite of projects in which Chinese investors and companies are among our major partners on a project that will simultaneously contribute to the new regional infrastructure and give vital impetus to Oman's own economic diversification. And I want to be very clear that these developments, Duqm, Sohar, or Salalah, just like Chabahar and Jawadar, are not a zero-sum game. Our engagement with China does not reflect a loosening of ties with others. We have always taken an inclusive view of international relations. We have always argued for an inclusive security architecture for the Gulf. And likewise, if visiting naval vessels from friends and allies from the US or the UK, from India or China, or indeed Japan, share facilities in our ports, we believe this is good for security. Relationships develop security on the meaningful foundation of a practical cooperation. So, this is a moment of historical significance. Over the last 50 to 60 years, oil exports have been at the heart of our economic thinking and have set the agenda for our infrastructure priorities and our approach to questions of regional and global security. In the next 50 years, we will see this agenda and these priorities shifting towards something new. The biggest sea and land transport network ever constructed in human history will link Europe and Asia even further. We hope to be part of this network. That is what we are working towards today with our friends and partners around the Indian Ocean and in Asia more widely. Thank you very much for taking the time to come and hear me out today. All the best.